A comparison that many people have repeatedly requested is between the Insta360 X5 and the DJI Osmo Pocket 3. I've always been a little reluctant to do this because they are two very different cameras, both of which are great, but actually serve somewhat different purposes. The X5 is a 360 camera that offers you a lot of creative freedom for action shots, while the Pocket 3 is well suited as a tool for cinematic and professional looking shots. That means both have their own particular strengths. But they also have things in common. They are both well suited for vlogging, family or travel shots, and at least here in Europe, they currently cost about the same. We'll come to the prices and a special offer at the end of the video. And in the last few weeks, two things have changed that have convinced me to make this video after all. An update has completely revamped the Instaframe mode on the X5, which now also has a gimbal mode for flat shots. With this feature, the X5 can now perform some functions that previously required a camera with a gimbal. And then of course, there is the unfortunate DJI ban in the US, which came into effect on December 23rd. As far as I know, the Pocket 3 is still available in the US, and it remains to be seen how the ban will affect products that have already been approved. But it does create uncertainty, of course. Can the X5 be a replacement for the Pocket 3? Let's take a look at the key differences between these two cameras, how the image quality differs, and which of the two cameras might be the better choice for you. For me, there are 7 key differences between the two cameras. The biggest of which is, of course, that the X5 is a 360 camera. Unlike conventional cameras, 360 cameras don't just have one lens and one sensor, but two sensors and two lenses with an extremely wide field of view. The image captured by the two cameras are then stitched together by the camera to form a 360 image. You can then play back the recording as a 360 recording and look around freely in the image during playback as if you were there. In most cases, however, you select a section of the 360 recording and export this section as a conventional flat image. This is called reframing. This has many advantages because you can decide what the optimal framing is in post, so on your computer or smartphone. And you can even adjust the framing dynamically during the recording. This offers an incredible number of creative possibilities. And if you've never used a 360 camera before, you might want to check out a tutorial on such a camera. For example, my beginner's tutorial on the X5. You can find a link to it in the description. Reframing is of course an additional step, but it has been greatly simplified. Features such as subject tracking also make reframing very easy and fast. But of course, every 360 recording still has to be edited, and reframing is nothing more than cropping the 360 recording. And even though the X5 can shoot in 8K, the reframed flat clip does not achieve a resolution of 4K, but rather a resolution of 2.7K. In return, you cannot only adjust the framing, but also freely choose the format in post. So you can decide whether you want to use the shot in landscape mode or portrait mode. And this is where the Pocket 3 has a weakness, because it doesn't have a proper portrait mode. For vertical shots, the image is either cropped and reduced to a resolution of 3K, or you hold the Pocket 3 sideways when shooting, which it was certainly not designed for. And if you just want to record a flat clip with the X5, you can do that too. In single lens mode, you can also take a shot with just one of the two cameras in 4K at up to 60 frames per second. Just like the Pocket 3, the camera then saves a normal flat video recording, and the recordings look absolutely great, as you can see here. Apart from reframing, a 360 recording offers another advantage. The selfie stick disappears from the shot. This happens automatically. You don't have to do anything. The invisible selfie stick effect is made possible by the overlapping images captured by the two extremely wide lenses. This leads to very cool results, especially when shooting sports or other outdoor activities. I think reframing and the invisible selfie stick effect are the two main special features of a 360 camera. And even though DJI and GoPro have also released new 360 cameras this year, I am convinced that as a complete package, the X5 is the best 360 camera you can buy right now. But the Pocket 3 also has a special feature that sets it apart from other conventional cameras. It has an integrated gimbal. While most consumer cameras usually only stabilize the image electronically, the Pocket 3 enables physical stabilization via 3-axis gimbal, and the gimbal has a number of advantages. Not only does it provide excellent stabilization, but it also enables smooth cinematic camera movements. In addition, unlike with the electronic image stabilization, The stabilization does not rely on sharp images. This means that the gimbal also provides good image stabilization in poor lighting conditions, in low light or when you use ND filters and a slower shutter speed. This is particularly useful if you want to achieve a cinematic look. However, you should also be aware that the X5 provides even better stabilization in good lighting conditions. You can see this clearly in this comparison. This is simply due to the extremely wide field of view of a 360 camera. Even the best gimbal cannot compete with this. In addition, the gimbal makes the camera fragile. While the X5 is waterproof up to 15 meters without a dive case and can also take cool shots underwater, the Pocket 3 is of course not waterproof and should be used with caution, even at the beach, as it should not come into contact with sand. The Pocket 3 is a great tool for cinematic shots, but it's simply not an action camera, and even though it allows for cool slow motion shots in 4K 120, it's not particularly well suited for action. But the gimbal also offers another feature that we should take a closer look at. With the Pocket 3, you can select and track a subject. You can also simply set it up somewhere, for example, attach it to a tripod, and then track and film yourself. This can be extremely useful, especially for solo creators. And I've used the Pocket 3 quite often for this very purpose. But if there is indeed a successor and thus a Pocket 4, then I would definitely like to see one thing from DJI, a complete rotation of the gimbal around its own axis. This is because the Pocket 3's gimbal quickly reaches its limit when rotating to the left. You should be aware of this if you want to film and track yourself with the Pocket 3. Of course, you can also set up the X5 on a tripod, film yourself and track yourself. There are now two ways to do this. You can take a 360 recording and then track yourself in post. Or you can use the new Instaframe mode. Similar to the Pocket 3, in the Instaframe mode, the camera captures a subject, which it then tracks. But the resulting recording is not a 360 recording, but rather a reframed flat clip. This means you no longer have to edit the recording. You can set up the X5 anywhere, let it track you, and you'll get a reframed flat clip in 4K. And unlike the Pocket 3, this can be done in a complete circle and without limitation, whereby the mode is not perfect, as you can sometimes see the stitching line. The Instaframe mode also has a gimbal mode that simulates the functionality of a gimbal. Under Virtual Gimbal, you can choose from different stabilization modes, similar to the Pocket 3. In addition to a follow mode, which does not allow lateral rotation and always keeps the horizon straight, there is also a pitch lock mode and an FPV mode, which works similarly to the Pocket 3. You can also activate a joystick and use it to adjust the framing, just like with the Pocket 3. And the Instaframe mode not only allows you to shoot a reframed flat clip in 4K, but also to simultaneously shoot a reframed flat clip and a 360 clip, which you can then reframe yourself. However, these simultaneous recordings are only possible in a reduced resolution. In terms of functionality alone, there is hardly anything that the X5 cannot do, but it would be wrong to say that the X5 can replace the Pocket 3 in every respect. As you have probably already noticed, these two cameras produce completely different images, and there are several reasons for this. Let's take a look at a few comparison shots. The biggest difference between the two shots lies in the field of view. The field of view of the X5 is significantly wider than that of the Pocket 3. This can be clearly seen in this comparison. There is also a lens attachment for the Pocket 3 that provides a slightly wider field of view. However, this also means that it loses some of its very special cinematic look that makes it so unique. To make these shots reasonably comparable, I used the Pocket 3 with the same selfie stick that I used for the X5. Although this stick is quite typical for the X5, in practice it is very awkward and also unusual to use the Pocket 3 with such a stick. It is absolutely not designed for this, and in the long run the base will be damaged, as I have already had to find out. In this case I used the Pocket 3 on a curved stick. This stick is somewhat better suited for the Pocket 3. The comparison of the field of view looks like this. But in many cases you will simply hold the Pocket 3 in your hand. That's what it's actually designed for, because as I said, it's a bit awkward to use the Pocket 3 on a stick. And when you hold it in your hand, the comparison looks like this. And you can see that the two shots are no longer really comparable. The difference in field of view is so great that these are two completely different shots. And you should be aware of this when deciding between the two cameras. Do you prefer a very wide look that also shows a lot of the surroundings, or do you prefer a higher focal length and closer shots? The second big difference is also immediately apparent in these shots. The X5 has a fixed focus. It is set to infinity. This means that everything in the shot is in focus. This makes the shot look very sharp and detailed. The Pocket 3, on the other hand, has a relatively large 1-inch sensor and, as we have already seen, a higher focal length than the X5. For this reason alone, it would not make sense to fix the focus to infinity, as the image would have too little depth of field. The Pocket 3 therefore uses autofocus, which automatically recognizes the subject in the image. This also allows for focusing on nearby subjects and creating a beautiful cinematic blurred background. And for this reason alone, the image appears softer overall and looks very high quality, similar to a shot taken with a significantly larger professional camera. Of course, this carries the risk that the actual subject will not be in focus. Autofocus is also not well suited for shots with a lot of movement, but as already mentioned, the Pocket 3 is not an action camera, and the autofocus works very well overall. The large sensor of the Pocket 3 also enables very good shots in low light. But it's incredible how well the X5 can keep up even in poor lighting conditions. All of these shots were taken on both cameras using the special shooting modes designed for low light. Of course, the Pocket 3 enables slightly better shots in low light. The shots are slightly better stabilized, they have more detail, and I think the colors look a little better too. But it's surprising how good the X5's shots look in a direct comparison. After all, the X5 sensors are significantly smaller at 1/1.3 inches. I think you've now seen the most important differences between the two cameras. But there are, of course, a few more differences you should be aware of. The X5 in particular has a number of additional features and shooting modes. For example, it supports voice control or gesture control, so you can start recording from a distance. It has an AI highlights assistant that automatically detects particularly interesting highlights in long recordings. It can take 360 photos with up to 72 megapixels, while the Pocket 3 can only take photos with 9 megapixels. On the other hand, the Pocket 3 with D-Log-M has a flat log profile with 10 bits, which is particularly useful if you want to edit the colors of your recordings heavily. Everything about the Pocket 3 is designed to take cinematic shots. The X5 also has a log profile, but not in 10-bit, and it's not available in 8K either. Both cameras have relatively good internal microphones. But of course, if you want to have better audio quality, you should connect an external microphone to both cameras. For the Pocket 3, there is the Mic 3 or the Mic Mini. And for the X5, there is the Mic Air, which is the better choice than one of the DJI microphones. Because with the Mic Air, you don't need to use the receiver on the X5 to get good audio quality. Personally, I really like both cameras. They are both examples of very well made devices. The question of price is not so easy to answer in the case of the Osmo Pocket 3. In the US, it officially costs $800. Here in Europe, it costs 440 euros. The Insta360 X5 costs $550 in the US. However, it is currently on sale and costs $465 with an additional 1 terabyte of cloud storage for 1 year. And if you use the link in the description, you will also receive a Mic Air as a free gift. But the offer is only valid for a few more days. As I said, you can find links to both cameras in the description. So which of the two cameras should you buy? For me, the answer is relatively clear. If you're looking for a versatile camera that's robust and also great for vlogging, go for the X5, especially if you like the wide look. If on the other hand, you don't like the wide look and are looking for a more cinematic look, or if you're looking for a more professional filmmaking tool, then I would recommend the Pocket 3. It therefore depends heavily on your personal preferences and needs. But don't forget, if you already have a good smartphone, then in combination with a gimbal for example, it can already do many of the things that the Pocket 3 can do. If you want to know more about the Pocket 3 or the X5, check out my detailed tutorials on both cameras. I'll also include links to both tutorials in the description. Give me a like as feedback if you found this video interesting. There will be more videos on the X5 and the Pocket 3. So stay tuned and see you next time.